You're listening to I Love It When, and I'm your host, Mo. I'm a speaker, coach, and connector. You're in the right place if you're looking for some inspiration and you're ready to truly embrace who you are. My intention with this podcast is to help you see that you are so much more powerful than you realize. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of I Love It When. I'm your host, Mo, and today I'm thrilled to introduce you to Juliette Ricci Lagman. Juliette and I met in this really wonderful and unique way. She actually came across one of my business cards in a coffee shop in Everett, and she looked at it. The front of it just has I Love It When, and on the back it has Mo in big letters, along with like coach, consultant, workshops, retreat host. And she looked at it, she's like, I like the look of this card. She took it home. This is probably like 6 months ago now, or maybe 8 months ago, and didn't reach out to me right away. And like 6 months later, she had a table at the Women's Expo that was happening at Hotel Indigo in downtown Everett, Washington. And I went to the expo to go see another client of mine that was there and had her table, and just kind of to be a part of it and see how it was going. And I was introduced to Juliette from a friend of mine, Kiana, who owns Urban Yogis in downtown Everett. And so we met, connected, chatted a little bit. And then she went home, and the next day she was cleaning, and under a pile of clothes, she found my business card, and she read it, and she's like, oh my gosh, this is the same person. And so we connected ever since then. And I'm having her on the podcast because her energy and her story are very relatable and unique. And she is truly an inspiration. And I love what she's doing with her life and with the world, for the world. So here's the 411 on Juliette. Juliette Ricci Lagman is an artist, writer, and podcast host from the Pacific Northwest. She has been painting in her unique mixed media style, combining color, text, and image for over 20 years. A graduate of the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, she holds a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. Her first book of prose and artwork, The Juliette Letters, Confessions of an Artistic Mind, was published in 2019. She recently published her second book, Be Like Water, a visual memoir. She also is the host of Permission Granted with Juliette Ricci Lagman, a thought-provoking podcast about the question, why not? More information about Juliette, her podcast, and her books can be found on her website at www.juliettericilagman.com. So in this episode, we talk about what led her to write her first book, how she got the gumption to take these large leaps in life, how energy healing has made an impact on her, and she describes what it felt like to have these huge chunks of old energy move off her body. And I loved it. I love this part so much. How she developed a solid belief in herself, how she does the work, even when she doesn't feel like doing it, and a little bit more about her new podcast, Permission Granted, and her latest book, Be Like Water. So enjoy this episode, and please let us know if you have any questions. Take screenshots of it, share it to social media. Please tag Juliette and I. I would love to get her story out to more people. Thanks so much. Enjoy. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of I Love It When. I'm really excited today to have you all meet Juliette. Juliette, I just want to jump right into it. Could you share with us a little bit about who you are and what you do now in present day?
Yeah, my name's Juliette Ricci Lagman. I am an artist and a writer, and a burgeoning podcast host. I grew up in Everett, and I went to school in Chicago, at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and I've been painting mixed media paintings for over 20 years. And ended up back in Everett, and recently went through a lot of life changes. And so I've been getting into essentially the writing game. I've just published my second book called Be Like Water. And additionally, I just started a new podcast called Permission Granted.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah.
There's so many different parts of your life that I want to talk about today, and I kind of just want to let it flow too, like I shared with you before we got started. So take us back though to how you got to this place where you're at now, like leaving your 9 to 5. What kind of jobs did you have in the past, and what gave you the gumption essentially to leave that world and try something completely in the unknown?
Yeah. So let's see. For many years, worked in the corporate world. I worked at Expedia. I worked at Nordstrom. That's where I met my husband. I worked at the Shack Arts Center as an event coordinator, respectively, and also Fast Signs for over 5 years here in Everett. We grew that quite a bit. Um, and recently, let's see, as recent as September, I left the job that I most recently had, and kind of finally really tried to strike it out on my own. Um, and by that, I mean, do my art full time or own my own business, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, I'll just give you the basic crazy year and a half I've had. Um, my stepmom passed away a year and a half ago, and that kind of, and I'm kind of in my midlife phase, if you will. So I call it a renaissance.
Mm-hmm.
When she passed away, I stepped away from my job at the time, and I booked a trip to Italy, and I took some time off to just deal with things, and then I booked a trip to the Philippines with my husband because he's from there and I've never been there. Um, and that was really amazing. My stepmom had always wanted to travel and she never did. And so I said, you know what? Life is short. I'm going to just go. And so I did. And then I went back to my job. And then my husband was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and we had surgery. So at the end of his surgery, I just, seeing him sort of come out of surgery, I was like, oh, life is
Mm-hmm.
short. That really hit me in the head again, for the second time. And so I left my job again. And I tried for about 6 weeks to strike it on my own. And at the time, I was really in the throes of writing my second book. Um, and then after about 6 weeks, I was like, I don't know what to do. I need some guidance. I need some structure. And I kind of got scared, so I went back and I found another job. And then during that time, I was there for 3 months. During that time, I actually was diagnosed with breast cancer. So
Gosh.
that was, yeah, that was life hitting me in the head with a brick, essentially. And I took that as a, third push from the universe to really go in search of myself. So I quit that job with some help from some friends,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been kind of striking it on my own for 3 months, and it's going really, really well. I've been on a really wonderful journey. So that's kind of the short story.
Sounds like a book all in of itself.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love how you said like you're trying to start a business right now. You're trying. I'm like, girl, you're not trying it. You're doing it. You're freaking doing it right now. You are doing it. That is a
That's true.
lot. That's a lot. And I know there are people that are listening that can relate to it seems like sometimes when things happen in life, it's like they happen in groups of threes and fours, like big life events like that, that take a lot
Yeah.
of emotional bandwidth and mental space.
Yeah, yeah, it really by the third hint from the universe, it was definitely more than a hint. I call it a brick on the head.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, here we go. And by that time, I had already been through so many ups and downs, especially with my husband and
Hmm.
his situation, and when I first had to get a biopsy, and that was just very emotional. But by the time I actually got diagnosed with breast cancer, I was like, oh, okay, well, I have nothing but gratitude. I'm going to be grateful for this, and I'm just going to take it as a sign to choose a different direction in life and to choose myself, for the
Hmm.
first time ever.
Hmm.
And I can tell you it's been going really well. It's not without its challenges, but
Hmm.
I've had so much joy and worlds open up to me in the last 3 months. I couldn't even chronicle it here. But I tell you, it's absolutely worth it. And I know, something I'll talk about a lot is I understand we all have responsibilities and we have to pay our bills and raise our kids and,
Hmm.
all of that. But there is definitely more. to life in that than that scared feeling that we have about lack and quote unquote security of the 9 to 5.
100%. Oh my God, I just got chills
Yeah.
as you were saying that. Uh, when you're talking about when you got diagnosed and you were grateful and you took it as a sign, how did you find yourself in that perspective with life? Like, how did you, because that was a choice for you to say, this is a sign that I'm
Yeah.
supposed to slow down and find myself. How did you get there? Have you always been there? Like, how did that happen for you?
No. I've had 40 years of, anxiety and sadness and a cloud over me and, being what we call in the weeds, being trying to figure it out, trying to get different results with the same actions over and
Mhm.
over, and that's a big thing, the way I found it truly was I started, well, um, I had started this new job and it was a small office. And I walked in, and after the first week, in my gut, I could just feel that something was off. And I couldn't pinpoint it. And I told my husband, I said, I'm just going to be honest. Something's wrong, and I don't know what it is. I can't pinpoint it. But he and I had signed up for a yoga retreat that weekend, actually. And I went and I kind of had a meltdown. Like I was having like a little bit of an existential crisis.
Mhm.
And at that yoga retreat happened to be Catherine Litz. She's a local energy healer.
Mhm.
And she, out of the, I think, 20 attendees, herself, myself, and my husband were the only non-yoga instructors. And we were doing a class one day during that retreat, and she sat next to us on the couch, and we just connected. And I got the gumption to go up to her towards the end and ask for her business card, ask for her
Mhm.
services. So when I got a final diagnosis, I'd been working with her doing energy healing sessions for about 2 months. And through working with her and sort of her, it's not therapy, but through
Mhm.
her guidance and talking and energy healing work,
Mhm.
partially call it Reiki, all of that. I was prepared, and I'm so
Mhm.
grateful. I was prepared for that moment. Like it just immediately, I was like, oh, I'm so grateful because then I just, instead of waking up with dread every morning,
Mhm.
immediately I was like, oh, I'm going to choose this. I'm going to choose love, which is something I learned with her. And I'm going to choose to be grateful for this because every morning when I wake up now, I'm grateful to be alive and I'm going to make the most of it. And so I just went 100%, literally, I have nothing to lose at this point. So,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just gave me permission to be free. And additionally, working with her, she kind of helped me work out of that job and see that I didn't need to cling to it because I kept shrinking myself literally so much that I was making myself sick,
Mhm. Mhm.
and not just the breast cancer, but just like my back hurt. It just
Mhm.
is a bad scene. So
Yeah.
I quit and I got out of there, and it was wonderful.
Wow. And had you had energy healings before?
A little bit, I want to say over the years with two different practitioners, but nothing that I went to on a regular basis or anything like
Okay.
that.
Okay.
To be honest, there's something, Catherine's very gifted
Mhm.
naturally, and there's something about the talk, the way she converses and
Mhm.
guides you, and forgive me for saying this, but she has a motherly quality,
Oh yeah, no, I think
which a
she's
lot of us need.
very nurturing, and
Mhm.
also I think there's I definitely resonate with her energy as well. She's deeply, deeply compassionate, and I think
Yeah.
that yeah is absolutely what I would associate with a motherly type energy. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally a
and it
compliment.
felt different. Oftentimes when the few times I've been to energy healing previously, it felt like we just got right into the
Hmm.
table work and skipped the talking. And if there was
Hmm.
talking, maybe it wasn't as compassionate or nurturing
Hmm.
or in depth. But I feel like it's more than energy healing; it's guidance, and it is kind of talking about what's going on in your life and then giving you a really good overall universal perspective. And that was the most valuable thing that I took from it. And I'm still working with her, to be honest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Uh, so I have one last question about that because I know that I have some people listening who've never had energy healing. So
Yeah.
how would you describe the shifts for yourself after her sessions, whether after just one or after a couple of them? Do you feel like you can sense your energy better? What do you feel like how did it help you in that way energetically?
I have more energy. That's a good start right there.
Oh yeah.
Um, and towards the beginning, the first 2 months were um, really crucial. I think I saw her once a week for 2 months to start, and it was worth every penny. It's cheaper than going to a doctor or a
Hmm.
therapist,
Hmm.
probably. But money well spent. And I'm not gonna lie, I've had a lot of childhood trauma, so I had a couple sessions where energy moved and shifted, but I I don't know if it's appropriate, but I'm going to say it anyway. Felt like I had an exorcism, you know.
Hmm.
Some of this bad trauma and energy
Hmm.
literally moved out of me, and I had some body movement and pressure relief.
Uh-huh.
And it literally came out of the top of me and left my body. And
Wow. And you could feel
I
it as
know
that was
that's,
happening? No,
yeah,
I'm so
yeah,
glad that you're saying this because literally one of the revelations I've had this weekend that I want to talk about in one of my next solo episodes is how uh I think being raised in the Catholic Church and then also just being exposed to all the movies and TV shows that they have in the US about energy and about spirits, one of my biggest fears has been fear of possession, fear of demons, fear of like these things you see in the movies. And recently, you and I were at a local MeWe fair where we got to
yep,
see and have that experience of someone feeling like had partial possession, is what they called it.
yep,
And I realized what it gave me was a completely different perspective on this because you could literally see the energy in her body and you could see it
yeah,
moving around and you could see that she had the choice to let it go. So when you
yeah,
describe that, it makes total sense to me because if we have energy from different traumas or even thoughts that we repeat to ourselves, negative thoughts, that is just the negative thought form actually takes a shape. And it's like energy and it will
yeah,
move all over your body if you let it. So the fact that you described it like that, it makes so much sense to me. And it's funny how this keeps coming up because it takes the fear out of it for me because it's just energy.
yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
freaking
and
amazing.
it's not to Hollywoodize it or,
No.
but it's legit, it is just, I don't
And it
know how else
changed
to
you.
say it.
I can tell that it changed
Yeah.
you because once that was gone, it's like you felt that space in your body, like you were just like something was peeled off of you. And now it's like your
Yeah.
real self is there. More and more of your real self can
Yes.
come out. Oh, thank you for
Yes.
sharing that because I feel like that needed to be said. For some
Yeah.
reason, I feel like that needs to be
It's
talked about more.
it's so hard to explain, and
Hmm.
practitioners will even, and we've seen this, it sounds funny, but it's true, they'll burp and that's just
Yes,
something leaving,
totally do that.
um and it's not, I'm not saying every time that I have work
Hmm.
with her
Hmm.
this is what happens. I'm just saying 2 times in
Yeah.
particular that stuff needed to get out. And it's not that I was possessed by a demon. It's just I had a lot of stuff that I
Hmm.
had not released from when I was a
Hmm.
kid. And
Yeah.
I'm telling you,
I think a
it
lot of
was
people do.
causing
A lot of
me,
people.
yeah, it was causing me a lot of illness,
Hmm.
and it's mental, emotional, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It
Yeah.
was just stuck in my body and I needed to get
Mhm.
it out. And I do definitely think that there's a link between that and my breast cancer. It's almost as if that was a little piece of negativity that
Yep.
needed to be shedded out of my body. And I
Hmm.
swear, after I had my lumpectomy, I felt like that is what happened, and that was at the end of October. I feel like another piece of the things that were weighing me down and
Hmm.
negativity left my body. Like, it was
Hmm.
fabulous. So
Wow.
I'm not saying I would recommend breast cancer, but
Yes.
we have seen a lot of folks of our around us diagnosed with it recently. So there's
Mhm.
something to that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that story because I do think it's something that has to be talked about more for people to get comfortable. Like, so for somebody who's listening who's like, oh, maybe I should check out energy healing. Maybe this is something that I haven't
yeah,
explored that could really help. So thank you for being brave.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about your books now because along with
Ooh.
all of these like big steps that you've taken in your life, you've taken the opportunity to express so many different things through your writing and through your art. And that also takes gumption and takes bravery and courage to put yourself out there. So, what led you to write your first book?
At the time, it was 2019, and I was working at Fast Signs. I was had been there a short time and connected with our graphic designer, Sarah Westby, and really she pushed me in the best way to do the book. I um, had wanted to be a writer, but I was scared, and I just had this idea. Well, I have all these paintings that are mixed media paintings. That I write in my paintings, handwriting,
Mhm.
literally. And she was like, well, why don't we just make a book? So she really encouraged me and pushed me. And so that resulted in the Juliette letters, which I'm just about to publish the second edition of that. And it's going to
Cool.
be with added notes and images and a little bit sleeker. So that'll be out very soon. We just finished
Beautiful.
it. And the paintings, mixed media paintings, they have handwriting like this.
I love that.
And so the not every single painting I've done over the last 20 years, but quite a few of them sort of select pieces.
Hmm.
And then the words on the opposite page that are typed
Yes.
out of the actual painting, and some added prose and such like that. So it's a beautiful book. It's a short book, and the new version is going to be brighter and a little bit better quality. So I'm really
Okay.
excited about it. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Um, yeah, and then my second book was in the works for about 2 years. I had an idea to put together. I started doing this sort of scrapbook or journal, if you will, of images and writing in the book. And eventually, it started out as a book of poetry, but that just wasn't cutting it. So I had to step it up a little bit. And so I put that together and scanned it. And I worked with Sarah Westby, again, my graphic designer. I hired a book coach named Jocelyn Lindsay. She's fabulous. And I worked with her for the 6 months prior to publication. And it resulted in Be Like Water. Um, and it's a beautiful book, very
I love it.
juicy and very personal. And it kind of goes through some of the, I call it a visual memoir, kind of goes through some of the life experiences, growing up with my mom and working through that. And I can honestly say, going through this process and being very vulnerable um, about my story has brought me to a place of um, freedom, and it's even better than I could ever have expected.
Mhm.
I stopped talking to my mom for 4 years, and we reconnected, and then now I'm in the throes of, okay, once I find forgiveness to myself and my family, etc., mostly myself, and I find the freedom. I'm now in the freedom phase and feeling what that feels like. So yeah.
Wow. Did you always know that you wanted to write a book?
Not really. In college, I loved writing, but I couldn't fathom writing a novel or even essays, and I just couldn't fit inside the box of um, what do you call it? The venues, I guess,
Hmm.
that we had that are traditional. I just couldn't make myself do it. So what I did is I started writing in my paintings because I had this sort of poetry, stream of consciousness, diary, letters, that kind of thing. And I was obsessed with handwriting. I love, the aesthetic of it. So it was my chicken, I call it chicken way of writing. And then finally, I think I came to a point where I was like, well, it's time to actually make something of this. And
Hmm.
so I feel like the visual memoir is something it's somewhat new, and it's a pretty cool box to put myself in.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
I love that you didn't feel like you could start writing like the traditional way. So you started writing within your paintings and it like snuck it in there and then became
Yeah.
your book. That's really
Yeah.
beautiful.
And some of that is, or a lot of it is um, I guess, rebel in me, if you will.
Hmm.
Like I just refuse to go the traditional route.
Hmm.
So, and the school I went to in Chicago was interdisciplinary. So I studied performance, I studied photography, film, painting. I even had the opportunity to go farther in the painting department. And the reason I truly didn't is because I didn't have the money to stay. So I had to the class that was advanced painting conflicted with my art history credit that I needed to graduate. So I had to make a choice. And so in retrospect, I would have stayed longer, but
Hmm.
I had to choose to graduate and get out of there. So yeah.
Amazing. And so now I want to kind of slip it in there that you are offering, if people are interested in your process for how you wrote, for how you published, for that whole thing, they can come to you now for coaching or consultation, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because
Yep.
I know there are people listening who want to write and want to learn more about the process.
Yeah, self-publishing, I've learned a lot about it, and it's come a long way, and there's some wonderful lulu.com is the press that I used, and the quality is amazing, and they have a lot of options. It's pretty inexpensive. The trick is to just get yourself there, as in
Hmm.
like just finishing your deadlines and pushing yourself through the mundane things.
Hmm.
And there's a
Hmm.
lot of them.
Hmm.
Yep.
Very cool. Hey, I'm popping in for a moment to let you know that if you're interested in working with me one on one in a small group, or you'd like to attend one of my upcoming retreats, please reach out or add yourself to my email list. You can go to iloveitwhen.org and scroll to the bottom where you'll see there's a spot to sign up. I also love to speak, teach, and create experiences for small, medium, or large size companies. If you know someone that I should know, please connect us. I'm looking to utilize I Love It When to create global change, and that will require collaborating with all of you. You're all so much more powerful than you realize. Remind yourself of that today. So I had put this question in my list of questions because I was curious about it for you from a number of different perspectives. But I wrote, if you could go back to your younger version of yourself at whatever age, what would you tell her now? Like, what age would you pick, and what would you want to say to her?
Probably like age 20, because that was, when I started truly becoming an adult.
Hmm.
I would just tell her, believe in yourself and don't waste your time, being trying to please other people and being other people.
Hmm.
Um, And I would also point back to the book I just wrote called Be Like Water, because it was based on a letter that my brother wrote me. And it had a poem in it called Be Like Water. And in that, he talks about being, flow like water and
Hmm.
be the, actually, I'll read that part because
I
it's
was just going to
pretty,
ask you if you would please read it, or if there was some part that you want to read.
yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Cool.
Um,
And it's so funny that you brought up
so,
that you basically would tell yourself to believe in yourself because before we got started, I was literally trying to think of what's this question that I want to ask you? And it was about courage or belief. And I was like, and it was something stemming from like, how have you gained belief in yourself? So I'm going to write that down for after this,
oh,
but read first.
perfect. Okay, so this is the letter right here. It's in the book.
Okay.
And my brother wrote this to me in college, and it's I'll just read it. Uh, Julie, be like water, flow to the most humble point down, flow over and under and around the stones in your life, and without knowing it, your coolness will have eroded the boulder to sand. It's not worth trying to move, for as MBE said, it's error to think about error, or something like that. Nevertheless, be like water, recycle yourself, flow like the slick mass of cool power and beauty you are. And it definitely points to Bruce Lee. So, respect to Bruce Lee. But what my brother was saying is, be yourself, and recognizing that, I'm uh, not, I, well, that I'm a beautiful, cool person, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to all the other horrible things that were running in the tape in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah.
I love that. Uh, so yeah, tell us a bit more about that belief in yourself, about saying to yourself back at 20, like, believe in yourself. What has helped you create belief in yourself? Because this even came up for me the other day with another coaching client where at one point in the middle of the conversation, I said, do you trust yourself? And we just paused for
Mm,
a moment and just paused because I was like, you can trust yourself. And so, how would you say
yes.
you've come to trust yourself? Like, trust the feelings in your body, trust the signs that you believe you receive. How did that develop?
The way I have, and it's very recent, and still a work in progress, the trust, you have to build a relationship with yourself, and you have to earn that trust, just like with anybody. And you have to recognize that it's okay to just be who you are. But how I did it is I started working with you, Mo, as a coaching client, and that was right at the time that I left my job in September. And you had me record daily affirmations on my phone, and not just once, but twice. And I've continued to mess with them and add to them, if you will, as my journey expands.
Hmm.
And even though I don't do it every single day, it's literally just a voice recorder app on my iPhone, super
Hmm.
easy. But there's something about, like you taught me, hearing it and saying it in your own frequency, in your own
Hmm.
voice,
Hmm.
and kind of meditating on it, and just the consistency of doing that, even if,
Hmm.
again, even if it's not every day. And then the second piece to that is doing the hard work of doing something scary, and that is, you have to figure out. So for me, I think it was um, my book launch party. That was a big deal. But doing my first podcast, even though it was messy and imperfect, and I didn't know what I was doing,
Yeah,
just once I hit post on that, I
you
was
did
like,
it.
oh, that feeling of accomplishment.
Yes.
It was like, it's undeniable that
Yeah.
you would believe in yourself because you did it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head too. Like, and I appreciate you saying that is also comes from working with me. But I would also say
Mhm.
that you really have had this belief before I met you too. Like, I don't know, because I haven't known you for that long, what you were like 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Mm,
But it feels like
hot
have
mess.
it feels like you've been really good at looking back. So like I think something that we don't a lot of people don't do actually is look back to see what we've accomplished. And when you kind of take stock of all the
Yeah.
different things you've done and you're like, "Oh, holy shit, like
Yeah.
I made the decision to leave that job, you know, 2, 3 times. I made the decision to try and do something completely different and in the unknown." And when you look back and you see that, it takes a lot of strength to do that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And this kind of leads
And
into, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't think we give ourselves enough credit. Like,
No, we really don't.
especially, and forgive me for saying this, but especially women, like
Hmm.
all the things we're doing, raising family and
Hmm.
cooking and cleaning, and, I could go on and on.
Hmm.
And even creative projects or work projects, or getting our
Hmm.
haircut, or calling to make an
Hmm.
appointment to get our haircut, you
Hmm.
know, we do not. And also, there's a lot of talk in the ether lately about the emotional labor of, keeping everybody in the family
Yep.
schedule in your head, and considering how
Yep.
are they doing, their feelings, what
Hmm.
do they need from me. It's exhausting.
Oh
And
yeah.
we do not, we're so hard on ourselves. Oh, I forgot to call the doctor for my son, or
Yeah.
I forgot to do this, or what,
So true. Oh my God. Tell everybody what you
uh,
told me the other day, this new term that you taught me about
what,
hospital fantasies.
oh, okay, okay. This is great.
Blew my
Well, it's not
mind.
great. It's sad.
Not sad. It's very sad.
um,
But I think so many
okay.
women will be able to identify with this.
Where did that come up from the other day before I met with you? I used to have,
I feel like
maybe
you
I
were
was
talking about this
reading
with
it.
Catherine.
Yes, yeah, actually, literally.
Hmm.
I used to have hospital fantasies, and And all told, my husband and I don't have kids. We have a bunch of cats, and that's totally different. But
They're adorable.
they're adorable. They're so much fun. I recommend if you want to be happy, get a cat or get two or more,
Hmm.
just like Taylor Swift says. Um, anyway, I would say I was so burnt out, emotionally drained, trying to be on the hamster wheel and, overwork at my job and, be everything to everyone. I was just exhausted. And this was probably maybe 15 years ago ish. Um, I used to have hospital fantasies. I was so tired and I couldn't rest. Because of my own mind or in my own space or whatever, that I would have hospital fantasies where I just wanted to be in a hospital because it was actually an excuse to rest and let myself rest. And without that permission, I wasn't allowed to
Yeah.
rest, literally, and
Wow.
be fed and taken care of. So that's just a sad commentary on our culture,
Yeah.
especially mothers, I will
Yes.
say.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a thing.
That's so crazy to me. And also just crazy in that it also makes so much sense. I don't like I talk to so many people who, and in myself included, I've had to decondition myself and I still am deconditioning myself from this
Yeah,
desire to have to be productive or feeling like I need to be productive.
yeah.
And especially because I don't have kids, I feel like I'm actually expected to do more even because I don't have kids. So it's
Yes.
really, really interesting. So when you said that the other day, I was like, oh, we got to talk about this. We got to, I got to mention this. Um,
Yeah,
I also want to go to, talking about you doing the work and doing the work with yourself in so many different capacities before I met you and when I've been working with you. I've noticed one of the things I love about you and I would consider to be like ideal people that I love to work with are people who actually do the work. Because when I assign
yeah,
homework, which is not something that a lot of coaches do, actually, a lot of coaches just, I mean, will listen and consult and give you feedback and advice, but they don't necessarily do the stuff that I do, but I really want people to make progress between sessions. So I give action items and I do them very intentionally. And there are quite a few people who will find an excuse not to do it. I mean, stuff comes up, life happens, and
yeah,
it's not that you don't make progress, but you don't make as much progress as if you were doing it. And so,
yeah,
how do you get yourself to do the work when you're exhausted, when other stuff's happening? Like, what do you do? Is there some trick that you have that you could
yeah.
share with people?
The trick is to force yourself. You literally have to schedule it on your calendar and just do it. And, it's just like school. If you're
Hmm.
paying, $666 for, I know that sounds weird, but I'm not lying, for a 3-hour class in college, then you better show up and you better do the
Yeah.
work. Because
Yeah.
otherwise you're throwing your money away.
Yeah.
And what I've learned over time, and this is just something I think that I gathered from the professional world, especially in my recent years being a manager, is that if you don't show people that you take it seriously, then they're not going to take you seriously.
Hmm.
And this really came up when I worked with, I mean, I've had like personal trainers before in the past and coaches and whatnot over the years. And you can just see it in their eyes if you don't come with the goods. And what I mean is, if you expect them to do the heavy lifting, oh, that's not what they're there for. That's not what they're there to guide you. And I can't say it enough, like working with my book coach, working with my graphic designer, um, if I didn't do what I said I was going to do by the day I
Hmm.
said I was going to do it, they're
Hmm.
not going to take me seriously. And guess what? Then it gives people the opportunity to slack off on their end.
Hmm.
I think um, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
This is not great, but I'll give it to you anyway. I recently went to get my hair cut, and I told you this story.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
No, this is a great
yeah, and
example.
this is actually it's perfect. You're right.
Yeah.
So I had gone to taken my mom. I made an appointment, took my mom to a new salon, and the gal working. a little bit, you know, younger. Anyway, she was new to the salon, and we had an appointment on a Saturday for 11 a.m.
Hmm.
And we're there, and she waltzes in about 10 minutes late. And I took note of that. I noticed, and I was
Hmm.
like, okay, all right. So I made an appointment with her for myself. And I normally go to this really expensive, well-known salon. And I was like, I'm going to try this, you know? So I made an appointment. And I go, same thing. She wasn't even on the premises, and she was 15 minutes late. And
Hmm.
so after about 12 minutes, I got up and I told her coworker, I said, "Hey, she needs to do better. I'm out of here. My time is more valuable than this." And
Hmm.
normally I would just wait and I would be upset and I probably wouldn't even say anything. But
Hmm.
I was like, if you're not going to take me seriously or take your business seriously, leave earlier. I don't care if you had trouble parking your car. It's not my
Hmm.
problem. Like, then I'm out of here because I don't feel valued. And
Hmm.
so I left. Yeah.
I love that. And you came and you shared that story with me on Marco Polo, and I was like, yes, girl. Because it may feel like it's some small thing, but I was just talking about this topic too with another woman and just saying how much we tolerate as women, which you were just talking about earlier, how much we
Yep.
tolerate, how much we think we're supposed to do, should do, all these things. And this is an example of you standing up for yourself and standing up for your worth. And
Yeah.
because you always, from what I've seen, you always respect other people's time. You respect other people's energy. You respect other people's businesses and lives. And so you deserve the same
Almost
thing,
too much.
right? So you
You
deserve,
know, where
yeah, like where, yeah, where it's out of balance, where you are giving more to
yeah.
other people than you are receiving. So I think this was a moment of you
Yep.
like being like, no, I get to receive as well. I get to.
There you go.
So I was so excited for you because some people might look at that and say, oh, that was some small thing, but oh no, it takes
No.
courage to be able to say, hey, this is not okay.
Yeah.
It really
Yeah.
does.
And I will never forget. And this goes back to that as well. I almost failed one of my favorite classes in college because I was late all the time. I was always late as a student, and I didn't get broken of that until I worked at Expedia, and it was a call center. And didn't matter how good of an agent you were, they would
Hmm.
replace you after four parties, I think, because they didn't mess around. You have to honor your coworkers and
Hmm.
be respectful, really, and be
Hmm.
available. That's what you're hired to do. So they broke me of that
Hmm.
because they would fire people sort of not left and right, but they would, it was an example, and I was like, oh,
Hmm.
you're because when you're late, you're telling people that your time is way more important than theirs, and
Hmm.
that is just not true for anybody at all,
Hmm.
ever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What do you think has led you to want to speak up more? So speaking up in this situation with saying, hey, it's not okay to be late to an appointment that I've booked with you. But just overall, like going from, because I think writing and art speaks on its own, but it's a whole nother thing when you take yourself to the platform of having your own podcast. And because
Hmm.
that will also lead to people wanting you to speak at different workshops or panels or conferences and things. So what has led you to want to communicate in this form as well?
I think that, uh, you know, I'm just going to say this. This is what first came to mind. Um, I, after my breast cancer diagnosis, I was like, well, I have nothing to lose, you know?
Yeah.
So it emboldened me to do exactly what I wanted.
Hmm.
Um, because life is short, and I'm like, oh, well, uh, I better get on with it
Hmm.
because, I could get hit by a car tomorrow,
Hmm.
heaven
Hmm.
forbid. But that's the premise of the podcast, is permission granted. And because we all have things, most of us have things that we want to do, whether it be
Hmm.
big or small, undefined, or they're ashamed to say it, um, that we want to do, travel, play soccer, go to a
Hmm.
dance class, start a podcast, whatever.
Hmm.
But we're afraid to do it because we think we're going to be ridiculed or we'll fail, or
Hmm.
We don't have time or money. We got to be responsible and put money in our 401k.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I want to talk about. And there are a lot of folks like, I suppose, you and I, or people we know, who have taken that leap. And,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, what I'm learning is, now that I'm starting to look around a little more, um, and understand, I think it'll often be just a decision or a choice or some life altering event that brings people to this, like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
and then they
Mm-hmm.
just decide.
Yeah.
Um, there's a actually really good, let's see, minimalism, that documentary about the minimalists. Look it
Mm-hmm.
up. I think it's on Netflix.
Okay.
And there's one gentleman that was interviewed in it, and he was like a young man working in Wall Street, and he was making a lot of money, and he got offered a promotion, and he just kind of stopped and went, "Oh my God, I don't want it. I don't want this life because I won't be able to spend time with my family and it's all about money. And I have one wild and precious life. I'm going to live it to the fullest." And he walked out, and I think he started traveling or something full time. Um, so yeah.
Wow. I love that. So tell us about your podcast, Permission Granted. Are you going to have, is it going to be all guests? Are you going to do some solo episodes? And what kind of stories do you want to share?
Yeah. So permission granted. I just had my first guest,
Mm-hmm.
Avalon Kalin, and he talks about creativity and human design, a form of astrology, and it's fascinating. And I basically want to tell stories of different things in the world and what people are
Mm-hmm.
doing in their life, what they want to do or what the
Mm-hmm.
leaps they've taken. Um, but it's not specific to that. It's could be anything. I'm gonna have you on there.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah, yeah. And because I know a lot of creative folks, there will be a big creativity tip. But
Mm-hmm.
that really, if to be human is creative. So
Mm-hmm.
um, it all flows together. It all,
Mm-hmm.
is part of it. So,
I love
yeah,
it.
yeah, I'm really excited, and it's available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, etc. Yeah.
Very cool.
Mhm.
Okay. I want to also, I usually ask these questions of everybody who comes on the podcast because I'm a big believer in helping people to feel more into their intuition. And so
Yeah.
I would love to hear, how do you describe what intuition is? How would you describe it or define it?
Yeah. I have a I have a couple good stories about that. I think I feel I've always had good intuition, but I doubt it often.
Hmm. Hmm.
But sometimes I'll give myself a test,
I like that.
regarding should I do this or should I do that? And you know, I've heard a lot of stories regarding intuition lately, but this recent retreat I went on with you and Seth in Sedona really strengthened my, like, oh no, this little voice in your head.
Hmm.
Um, I really truly call it a gut feeling.
Hmm.
That's the best way to describe it.
Hmm.
But that voice in my head is true, and it's not always explainable
Hmm. Hmm.
why you're being told to do something or not do something, but whatever it is, you can trust it. I mean, I probably 99%, if not all of the time, test it out. You can trust it. Like, don't
Hmm.
get on that ferry, don't eat that,
Hmm.
don't go down that, uh, don't get in the elevator with that person. I mean, that sounds
Hmm.
dramatic, but it could be
Hmm.
literal, little or big things. Don't book that trip to
Hmm.
Tokyo, whatever, because
Hmm.
something else is coming that you don't know about. Not forcing things, I guess.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, when my husband and I met, we, were just friends, and we had, if anyone has ever seen the Blues Brothers, and I always think about this, and they say, I'm on a mission from God.
Hmm.
It's the funniest part of it. I mean, that movie is hilarious, but I always think about this because literally, I had met my husband. We had emailed a couple times after I moved away and left the job. Um, and I almost deleted his phone number, and he called me one day, and we talked. It was like Thanksgiving, and um, and then another year goes by, and I hadn't talked to him, and literally, like message into the top of my brain. I was sitting in a cafe under a tree outside in Portland, and a message from God said, "You should call that Ron Lagman guy." And it was like so clear. It was crystal clear, like a big whoo. So I did, and he was like, "Oh, I just joined the Air Force and I'm leaving for boot camp in 2 weeks." I mean, crazy. And I was like, "Oh, you should come visit." And he did, and we would write letters, which is a fabulous way to fall in love, by the way,
Yeah.
because you really get to know someone. And I loved his handwriting of all things, I just, it was amazing. And so that was a big one. But other than that, I've had a couple other big ones, but uh if it's just on the day to day, you just feel it in your gut, literally.
Yeah.
Your microbiome, your inner, um
Yeah.
would you call it inner chakra? It does not lie.
Do you think that's where you get most of your messages is like, oh, you feel a feeling in your stomach, whether it be like a go feeling or a stop?
Yeah, or just it seeps into the back of your mind. Not,
Yes.
and you can tell the difference if it's your thinking mind or
Yes.
your sort of spirit talking to you, or your intuition. But yeah, I'll even use the words in a professional setting, like, my gut is telling me this. and
Hmm. Hmm.
and that's probably the uh, most um understood
Hmm.
thing to say. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, well, if it's your gut talking, then we gotta do it,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it literally doesn't lie. Like,
Yeah.
I used to, as a manager, say to my folks on my team or my superiors, my gut is telling me this, and you know what? It usually was right. I mean, I feel it was right, and
Yeah.
so you can't deny that. Yeah.
No, I love that. I used to say all the time in different jobs that I had, I just have this feeling, like I feel like you might
Yep.
want this, or I feel this. And I realized people didn't really like the word feeling. They were like,
Yep.
it's just a feeling. I don't care about a feeling. And I wish if I had said gut feeling or gut, if this is my gut, they probably would have accepted that more. But feelings or feeling was not really accepted. But now
Yeah.
I have no shame in saying it. I'll be in a business meeting with other men, especially men that are in corporate offices, and I say it on purpose because I'm like, you are going
Yep.
to hear this. You may not understand it or accept it, but this is real. This is how I feel.
Yeah.
And my feelings are intuitive. And so I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. Uh, I know we have a couple more minutes, and I want to have you share where is your energy focused right now on your business and life? Because you've had a lot going on for these last couple years, but where are you looking to grow? Like, how do you have a vision for your business in terms of how you want to fill your time?
Yeah. So I'm trying to learn and balance it, the letting myself rest and just understand that,
Hmm.
I'm doing enough. And I've had people recently say to me, "You do more in 1 week than I do in a lifetime." And I'm like, I don't, it just doesn't compute. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, but the trick I've learned is to bullet point your goals and just do that and let everything else fall by the wayside,
Hmm.
as much as you can. It's not
Hmm.
foolproof. Obviously, you have to pay bills and you
Yeah.
feed your cats. But where I'm focusing my time, again, it goes back to the balance thing. I'm trying to pay attention to not just doing things just to do them,
Hmm.
or fill my time just to fill my time, and sort of um, the how do you say, generating income is always in the
Hmm.
back of my mind. So I'm trying to learn uh, what that means and change that definition for myself, is a good way to say it. So that said, I'm focusing on my podcast because it's really where I'm drawn, and I'm really excited about it. And this is something I learned, actually talking with you the other day. I want to make a poster that says, "Are you excited?" Because that's going to tell you where to put your energy. Just that's
Ooh,
it.
I
Are
love
you
that.
excited? Yeah.
Yeah.
Does this excite you? Right?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, then don't do it. Because it's a waste of your
Yes.
time.
Which is so difficult, right? Because we get told all the time that the excitement or the joy is just a nice byproduct, but it doesn't happen most of the time. Like we're not really supposed to feel joyful about our lives. And even this morning, as I was leaving the eye doctor, of all things, like, I'm like, this is amazing. I get to do whatever the heck I want for the rest of the day. And I just have to stop and like tell myself that at least once a week. Um,
Yeah.
because I'm like, this is how it's supposed to be. I remember being so bored. Bored is a big one that comes to mind. And then just like constantly putting myself in the future of like, well, I can't wait till I get to relax when I get home. I can't wait until the weekend
Yeah.
when I can do like I could go shopping or do something else. That felt like I owned my time. And so to have that on a daily basis, yeah, it's like that is where I believe we should be headed as a society in the US and all around the world is finding a
Yeah.
way for all of us to get away from feeling like our time is owned by other people
Yes.
and
And
that we
I
have to
think
live
that
that way.
is I think that is where we are headed. And I'll give you a quick example.
Yeah.
My husband and I just adopted two more cats against our better judgment. But I'm not gonna lie, they're about 6 months old and they're rescues from a shelter.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not gonna lie, even though it's crazy and it seems crazy, they fill my soul, and I like get to sort of lay on the bed and take a nap, and they'll lay on me and purr, and I'm like, how did I get so lucky? Like this is what it should feel like for everybody, and I
Hmm.
feel like it's an extra special treat for sort of the health stuff I'm going through, but
Yep.
I
Yep.
think everybody deserves that all day
Oh
every
yeah.
day, and
Not to mention
you
like the
know
frequency that when cats are purring, that frequency is actually healing. Like it's a healing
yeah.
frequency. So it's like legit, you're legit healing yourself with those cuddles. I love it.
all day, every day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think there's something there. And for the podcast, I'd like to essentially it's going to inform my next book because
Okay.
there's a lot there, and I'm very excited about it. So
Very cool.
I'm kind of so this next book will uh, be starting with the second part of my journey and the gratitude for my diagnosis and just all of that. And then I want to talk about people's stories. What do you want to do? And, why aren't you doing it?
Hmm.
Or why are
Hmm.
you doing it? Yeah.
Rad. Well, is there anything else that you like wish more people knew about you? Is there something that you wish more people knew about you?
I have a really good laugh. That is all.
You do. I love that. I
Yeah.
love asking people
So
that
do you.
question because you never know what they're going to say. And it's like, oh, let
I
me think
know.
about what have I not told people about myself? Um,
I don't get to break it out very often, but it's pretty spectacular. So,
I can confirm
yeah.
that. It is an excellent laugh. Well,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything that you did. I already have in my mind like several clips that I want to share, which always tells me like this is a fabulous stories that you shared. My
Thank
last question
you.
for you is always, what is your current I love it when, either for yourself or for the world right now?
Oh, I love it when um I'm gonna I don't have a general, I have a specific one. I went to Starbucks the other day
Yeah.
and I went through the drive-through. And the two gals there were working. The window were just very bubbly and friendly. And I got up to the window and the gal said, we're giving out stickers today and we're doing it based on people's aura, like what's going on. And I was particularly sunshiny that day. So she handed me a sticker and it had two puppies on a like rainbow colored planet. And she said, I was going to keep this for myself, but I think you need it. And I stuck it on my hand and I wore it all day long. I wish I had it to show you. And I
Oh,
was like, we need more of this in the world. It was just the most beautiful moment. and it set the
Yeah.
tone for the whole day. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I think sometimes people don't realize how those small things can affect each other when you don't know someone and
Yeah.
she just offered that like ray of sunshine out the window. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Like it's in the drive-through. It's like the wildest thing, like
Oh,
totally unexpected. So yeah, if anybody's interested, I have my books for sale on my website and
okay.
my
I was just
podcast
going to ask, how can
information.
people, like, what's the best way for people to follow along with you? Do you have a newsletter? Should they follow you on Instagram or Facebook? What's the best way?
Yes, best way is my website, JulietteRicciLagman.com, and my Instagram is juliet.ricci.lagman. That's the best way to find
Okay.
me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll put all that in the show notes too if you're listening in. So connect and reach out to
Yay!
Juliette. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mo. This was a pleasure.
I'm so glad.